At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
That's a funny movie, by the way.
Is it? All right. I don't recall it being one of my favorite films, but
that's the one where Robert Downey Jr. punches the 11-year-old boy. So
that's the highlight from the movie.
Highlight
that we should be aware of.
obviously. Yeah.
No, that's a very funny scene.
Welcome to the Ankler Podcast. This is Sean McNulty of the Wake Up Newsletter here at the Ankler here in New York City on Thursday, January 16th. I'm joined in Los Angeles by Richard Rushfield and Elaine Lowe. Richard, how things going out there? You're back in the office, I see, no longer in your car, so this is a step up in the right direction?
Yeah, things are back up and running. We're safe. We're unburned. You get to feeling kind of guilty because everyone keeps asking, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" I'm like, I'm fine. I'm several miles away from the burns, but you're surrounded by horribleness all day.
It's kind of like a dichotomy of still being in it, but your day-to-day, Richard, exactly. You're in the office. You're probably having a regular day as you normally would.
I'm not in any jeopardy, but just unhappy observer to it. So,
although our office was on the southern border of an evac zone, isn't it?
But it never. I mean, you could see flames out the window, but from a distance. It was a nervous area, but never quite threatened.
And Elaine, how about over in your world? Everything all right?
Well, the winds have just subsided somewhat, which is nice. We were expecting some dangerous winds over the last couple of days, but at least in my neck of the woods in the valley, it didn't impact us as much. Although the unfortunate thing and the really jarring thing is just how many people you wind up discovering have been either personally lost their homes or have been evacuated or have been impacted by the fires. And I was working on a story. It was an interview with a TV director who lost his home in the Woolsey fire back in 2018. And I had included a lot of lists of, here are some crew members. These are individual GoFundMe lists that you can support the community with. And it's really jarring to go through these lists and then to realize, oh, I know that person. Or, oh, I've worked with that person before. Or, in my case as well, like I went to high school with this person. And to see all these familiar names on these GoFundMe lists and to realize and to learn that way that that's how people in your world have been impacted by it. Just a very jarring experience. But yeah, the TV director that I talked to earlier this week.
He's become kind of a go-to source here. Maybe not by plan, but he's someone who's familiar with losing his home, unfortunately.
Yeah. So there's this TV director, Jeff Hunt. The showrunner had reached out to ask for his guidance last week on what to tell a friend who had lost their home. And he had very quickly starting last Wednesday night, just a day after the Eaton fire started, and a day after the Palisades fire started, he became a real sought-after resource for industry workers who, had been impacted by this. And, he was sort of walking them through, here's what you should expect next. Here's what to do, what not to do.
Well, he had lost his home in the 2018 Woolsey fire in Malibu.
Yeah. I mean, he had lost his home in quite dramatic fashion. He was living in Malibu with his wife, his 4 kids, their dogs, their guinea pig. He had been out of town in Utah while it happened. And then, his wife evacuated in the middle of the night. He turned on the TV the next morning into the local KTLA stream and saw what was likely his own house on fire on the news stream, and really just went through all the steps of trying to rebuild his home and, has become something of a guru for about 100 people by last count to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, so he'll have a lot of practical advice, not just even the first steps, but even long-term, Elaine, for people who, again, no one's familiar with what to do here. And he really has, again, practical, just all right, a few practical steps to take now and in the weeks ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, I mean, it ranges from, once you've lost your home, make sure you keep all your receipts because that's going to factor into your loss of use coverage with your insurance company. Don't rush to buy a home, even though there's an anticipated shortage right now. He was saying, don't make such a big decision 2 days after the worst day of your life. And he was also saying, hey, I know you want to be able to go back and see your home right now and try and salvage things, but wait, like you don't need to go right now. And when you go, make sure you're well protected, like wear steel-toed boots, wear painter's respirator, wear thick gloves, because he was telling me about when he went to go to the rubble of his Malibu home and he stepped on a board and put a nail all the way through his foot.
Yikes.
So So and things are still hot like a week out, like there are still embers. So, he had a lot of practical advice there.
Yeah. And he had a good insurance story, and he had other, things to say in there, Elaine. So it was a really good piece there with Jeff. But Richard, I will say, one thing the fires haven't been stopping is feature film production in LA, because there isn't any. So, the New York Times did a piece this week on the state of things in Los Angeles and, in regards to the studios and production. And they found that in all of Los Angeles, there was only one studio movie shooting, Disney Fox's The Hand That Rocks the Cradle remake, which did go on pause during the fires. And I think, Avatar 3 was doing some additional shooting, but Universal, Sony, Legendary, Netflix, Amazon MGM, Paramount, and Warner Brothers all had 0 films shooting in LA over the past week.
I spoke a couple weeks ago to a very major film producer, head of a known company, who said that they haven't filmed a movie in LA since the 1990s.
Yeah, I mean, this just codified. Codify that exactly of just the state of things here. And again, we talk about this often. This isn't necessarily breaking news, Richard, but it really just codified like there's nothing to stop there. Like, okay, this is really the reality for feature shooting in LA.
No, I feel like this is one where we're often accused saying the sky is falling, right. But. It's fallen, so we don't have to say that anymore. With the state of production in Los Angeles, the worst has happened. Maybe something good will arise out of that. Maybe having production broken up around the world and other places will give rise to something different and better. Who knows? But it's happened. It's not a speculation of like, be careful or they're all going to leave. We've been warning about it for 20, 30 years, and now it's gone. So.
Yeah, well, Film LA codified this week. Their annual report came out. They track production shooting. This is not soundstage shooting, but production shooting, on location shooting in Los Angeles. And, the production days for 2024 were just up 5.6% from 2023, a year when the town wasn't working for about 6 months. So that's the only change, from 2023 to 2024. Richard, they counted 23,480 location days in 2024. Give me a guess. What do you think the number was in 2019? So you had 23,500 days in 2024. 2019, what was the number, Richard? What do you think?
97,000.
Okay. Elaine, you want to put a guess out?
I was going to put it somewhere more around 40 to 45,000.
All right, they're about at 36,000. So that was that. And I will say 2018 was 39,000. So
holding on better than I would have thought.
I guess so. Richard, in your world, I guess it's doing a lot better than we thought. But Elaine, you're definitely more spot on there. But by category, just breaking things down, film production was up 18%, again, over a year where... Again, there was not a lot of film production going on for 6 months. Film production is down 27% over the 5-year average. TV production is down 47% over the 5-year average. This is what the reality is. And it's, the past 2 years, 2022 was 36,000. This wasn't that long ago that this production was here. It wasn't like this was this slow decline. It's just been this cliff past 2 years that these numbers really, codify for everybody, Elaine.
Really underscores just how slow the recovery was last year.
Right.
I mean, we all anecdotally talk about, is anything going on? Is anything being produced? Is anything shooting? And the answer is kind of like, no, I don't think so. But this really underscores just how few things were shooting. If you look at that compared to 23, when the town was not working for more than half that year.
Half the year, yeah.
And Film LA said that 2024, with its 23,480 location shooting days, was the second least productive year since 2020, which was obviously a year marked by COVID. So that's remarkable.
By the way, while we're talking about Film LA, can we single out this governmental group that was created to assist filming and aid it here at a time, I guess it was about 20, 25 years ago it was started, when they were first sounding the alarm about production leaving and they were going to make it easier. And from every person who works on location, the only good they do is keeping track of this number of how many people have left. And again, the systemic failure of our leadership class, both in the industry and political, that all they can do is sort of keep track of the numbers and barely do that. But the uselessness of that group has, I've heard stories of far and wide.
Yeah. That's the answer what to do. But even Elaine in TV, like you want to go, like, because obviously this covers reality, it covers, feature films, it covers, like, pilots that are included, this and things like that. But just across, 2024 to 2019. So a 5-year period, it's the last year before COVID and this past year we just lived through, which again, had no strikes. There was nothing, hampering 2024. There was no COVID. This should have been the year.
Not in theory. I mean, it should be noted that the first, I'd say, like 4 or 5 months of the year were still very tentative because of the IATSE contract talks. So that's what some of the production delay was chalked up to, at least in the first part of the year.
Okay, maybe, all right. But how roaring were people coming back to work and, end of 2023? That was like, get the cameras back on,
Yeah, looking at the Film LA numbers, not until the last, 3 months of last year, really.
Yeah, perhaps that was the way it broke down. But the drama TV shooting days in 2024 were about 2,600. In 2019, it was over 4,700.
Wow.
I mean, comedy 500 days in 2024, 2019 over 2,000. So this is scripted TV. I mean, that's just that alone was just these numbers that came out in this report. So I broke a lot of these down in the Wake Up today. I'll have more tomorrow in the Friday edition as well. I dove more into it. But, as I said, we talk about this, Richard, on the pod, and we write about this often, but just the numbers, this is, again, location shooting. It doesn't include, the soundstage shooting and so forth. But if you want, there's no more evidence you can put out at this point that there's a huge problem here. And there's not, this isn't just people complaining that, there's no work. But it's like, no, there really is a large problem, that is not, what do you think the 2025 numbers are going to be? I think this is going up, but, this is a larger, turned into a much larger issue that everybody, as you said, has been talking about for a while, but it's really coming to view here.
Well, we're talking about locations. I mean, anyone who works on location schedule will tell you how, like I said, when Film LA started, there were all these declarations of the city is going to become filming friendly again, and we're going to stop making trouble for everyone. And that is anyone who works on location will tell you that is completely out the window. Like every neighbor's complaint has to be addressed with a payoff, and they have to hiring the off-duty firemen to monitor to make sure you file your papers properly, and every complaint dealt with, and no one making an attempt to make shooting easier in this city anymore.
So what are the improvements that the location scouts and producers you've talked to would like to see?
Well, this is what we're competing with. You go to Nevada and you shoot there, and you show up there and you say, hey, we'd like to start shooting this afternoon. And they say, great, do it. And if any neighbors are complaining and saying, oh, they parked their car in front of our house, and they say, hey, we're supporting filming here, and it's happening. And here you have to, I'm not sure I'll get the times wrong, but the amount of time you have to file all the permits in advance for all your shooting has just grown and grown and grown. And you have to hire all the people to monitor your shoot. That just increases the cost of it. And this on top of a terrible incentive package. There's no spirit or attempt to just sort of streamline this and make it easier. So the bureaucracy and everyone, when shooting comes to a neighborhood, there's all these people who are just going to get a little piece of it and take a little slice off that production. And that adds up, and it makes it harder and more expensive and slows the whole thing down.
Yeah, and you combine this, Selena, we'll see if obviously there's talk of more incentives to come from Sacramento. We'll see if that transpires over the next few years here to try and help this out. But you combine these numbers, these are 2 years now of significant decline here. This isn't just a one-off year, Elaine, with the strikes. So it's 2 years combined now with the fires and people just kind of reevaluating things, Elaine. It's we'll see what the year brings, but certainly a big question mark, I'd say the least. But Elaine, you do have some new breaking news for us with the new administration that gets sworn in on Monday. They have a solve for the situation, I'm told. What do you got?
So President-elect Trump said today on his social media network, Truth Social, that he's announcing 3 special ambassadors to a, quote, great but very troubled place, Hollywood. And he's named Jon Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone as special envoys for the, quote, Purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years to foreign countries, and the next part is in all caps, back, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. So he's saying that Voight, Gibson, and Stallone are going to be, quote, his eyes and ears, and he will get done what they suggest.
I see. What's Jon Voight been up to lately in Hollywood? I'm not up to speed, Elaine. What these guys?
Right. Well, that's a good question, right? If you're picking 3 envoys,
the envoys, you think they're dialed into the current Hollywood scene, and what's on the ground here?
Who are in theory, I suppose, people who should be quite in touch with the business. So yeah, let's take a look at his 3 envoys here. The most active of the 3, I would say, is likely Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, he has Balboa Productions, which has
Tulsa King, and yes.
Right. It produced Tulsa King.
I'll just stop this and just say I don't agree with their politics, any of them, but in the history of Hollywood, these are not marginal players. They've kind of made themselves politically marginalized now, but Mel Gibson is like the most successful independent producer there is, as well as was the biggest actor in Hollywood for a decade and a half here. That Jon Voight is a Academy Award winner and very talented, and Sylvester Stallone was a phenomenon for a decade. So I'm not a fan of their politics and don't think they're at the epicenter of Hollywood these days, but these are people who've had significant careers here.
Well, I'm not denigrating their careers, Richard. I'm just saying these aren't people who are currently extremely active in the LA production community.
Well, I mean, let's break down a little bit what some of their activity is. I mean, of course, they're household names. These are names that the average American voter, I'm sure, recognizes. But, if you look at Sylvester Stallone, his Balboa Productions, it has a multi-year first look deal with Amazon Studios for both scripted and unscripted projects. This is a deal that he's had in place since April of 2023. Yep. Like you said, Sean, he produces Tulsa King, which has been renewed for a 3rd and 4th season. You look at Mel Gibson, I think the latest he's done is he's directed a Mark Wahlberg thriller, Flight Risk, which Lionsgate is releasing later this month.
Yep.
He's reportedly also making a sequel to The Passion of the Christ. Jon Voight is still acting, who was in Megalopolis, was in Ray Donovan for so many years, although he has made more headlines lately for the things he said about Trump than actual projects he's been working on or actual sort of industry business that he's been a part of. But yeah, those are the 3 special envoys that are supposed to make Hollywood great again, I suppose.
I guess so. Well, listen, Godspeed, guys. I hope he can make a difference. Clearly, LA needs it. We'll see what Trump's position on this will be. I know he's also been had meetings with the LA Olympics Committee and has been committed to keeping that in Los Angeles for 2028. That's really been a question that's been raised. So making that a priority. So we'll keep a good thought for everybody, that makes some actionable change to turn the tide for a lot of these numbers that we're seeing right now.
Yeah. But I do think it is a valid question to say, yes, these are 3 household names, but how involved in the day-to-day, how in touch with the day-to-day business are they in 2025?
I mean, this is not a real job that they're taking, the president's envoy to Hollywood. I mean, that's not a real thing that does any actual thing. So it's
I guess we just don't know yet, do we?
That's a broad term.
I haven't seen any act of Congress that gives the president's envoy to Hollywood green light power or script approval or anything. So, they're authorized to go have a meeting with Brian Robbins or something, but it's not a real job they're taking on.
Yeah. We'll see what this translates to, and if anything, or is it more, more of a figurehead position? But we shall see in the days and weeks and months ahead here. But coming up next, we're going to dive into what the latest Netflix data is showing about the relationship between Hollywood studios and the tech streamers. And I'd argue it's evolved quite a bit beyond the war that it's been made out to be. And dare I say, a almost successful working relationship. But we'll look at some new data there that I thought was really interesting and caught my eye. Plus, we'll dive into the forefront of digital marketing and meme culture to see the expanding role it's having within TV and movies. And the holiday movie season is now behind us, so it's time to give out our biannual Box Office Genius Award, brought to you by Premiere Magazine. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh. That sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Hi, I'm Eric Barmack, and I'm a working producer, and I write the Real AI newsletter for The Ankler. Real AI is your destination to understand the truth about AI and entertainment, who's using it, how they're using it, and the technological change already here in the industry. I care about AI because it's changed the way I run my own business and even pitch and sell shows. I've used AI for script coverage, to help my team brainstorm concepts, and even to come up with pitch decks. Real AI will also tell you more about the fast-moving technology the studios and streamers are tracking and how that will impact your job both today and tomorrow. I believe being informed is the only way to face the new frontier right here at our doorstep, which I believe can help foster the best in our human creativity, something that can never be replaced. Real AI comes out every other Tuesday as part of a paid subscription to The Ankler, so please join me by subscribing at theankler.com today.
All right, so Richard, how many of the top 10 most popular movies in America on Netflix last week were actual Netflix movies? What do you think?
3.
3. Elaine, you want to hazard a guess here?
Ooh, like Netflix originals?
Yes, produced by Netflix, if you will. Yes.
I'm going to say 2.
All right, you're both wrong. It's 1, and it was a French action movie, a brand new French action movie.
Which movie?
Do you want to watch a French action movie, Elaine?
I want to know what's on the list. Yeah, maybe I do. I'll turn those subtitles on.
It was number 7 in America, so clearly Americans were digging it. It was number 1 in about, I think, 30 or 40 countries across the globe. So
I just wanted to hear you say words in French, Sean.
Ad vitam. I don't know what that. I guess that is French. So, but I can kind of say that one and not, embarrass
completely
myself.
Butcher it.
Exactly. So I'll take that victory where I can. But yeah, so Richard, Warner Brothers Pictures had 7 of the top 10 most popular films on Netflix last week. Universal had the other 2. Those, of course, being Minions movies, naturally. And this is just 1 week, of course, but I track the Netflix viewing every week. And, especially in the U.S., studio viewing dominates, maybe not to 9 out of 10, but certainly it's usually a good 7 out of 10. And there were no new English language releases last week. But, this is 2025, Richard. Netflix has built the formidable library that they set out to build when Scott Stuber was brought on board, 7 years ago now. It's maybe 8 years ago now. And the number 3 movie on the most popular film in America last week on Netflix, the country's most popular streaming service, Richard, an action comedy, studio action comedy from 1998, Rush Hour.
I mean, there's something to be said for things that people have heard of because studios spent $100 million to educate the world of its name. So that, that's where you get your $100 million back.
Yeah, this is the value should keep showing. Whatever they spent, whatever New Line spent back in 1998 is still the costs are still being amortized, brought in here in 2025.
Yeah, and I mean even those STX movies you'd see
sure.
popping up at the top of them. Which,
Bad Moms exactly.
Yeah, had middling box office success, but they had $50 million marketing budgets behind them or whatever.
Well, case in point, Richard, the number 5 film, Due Date. The 2015 kind of middling, comedy from Warner Brothers there with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis. It did, I think, $100 million US.
That's a funny movie, by the way.
Is it? All right. I don't recall it being one of my favorite films, but
that's the one where Robert Downey Jr. punches the 11-year-old boy. So
that's the highlight. That's
the highlight for Richard, obviously. Yeah.
No, that's a very funny scene. That's
all right. Okay, Richard's 2 thumbs up. I'm a little more mixed on it, but anyway. But if I put that out there to people, I don't know that it would be their favorite comedy of all. Certainly not Rush Hour. I'll put it in that sense of it. But even that was number 5. And Richard, this conversation comes around, and it's Netflix, beating the studios, the movie business, and streaming winning or studios winning. I'm like, Warner Brothers is in theory getting a very nice check from Netflix, I'm sure, for all these films, and Netflix is getting engagement. And I don't see I get that Netflix competes for if you want to stay home on a Friday night and watch a Netflix film, or do you want to go to the theater in that sense, but this isn't like Netflix is going to sink the movie business. They're very, very reliant upon the Hollywood studio system, at least in the movie side, to get engagement here globally. The number 2 movie globally was The Secret Life of Pets 2. That wasn't available in America, but that was I think 2018, 2016, Illumination movie.
That's a huge franchise. I mean,
Right, that's what I mean. It's Universal's happy to get the check, and Netflix is happy to have the engagement.
Yeah, but people talk about this like, oh, you see, so theatrical is better because you have, and yes, spending $100 million on a movie means that more people have heard about it, but does that make you back the $100 million or whatever?
Oh, you're making bets, sure, 100%, yeah.
It's all a question of that. And then there's a question of what about those movies that you spent $100 million to market and didn't open?
Like, right. The Flash may not be doing these numbers, in 10 years. Yeah.
But if the argument here is, look, movies that are released theatrically have a better shelf life on streaming, how much of that argument is skewed by the fact that a lot of these are kids' titles?
Well, that's why I bring in the other titles. Yes, I mean, the Minions and yes, the kids viewing and so forth does dominate it. But I mean, again, just looking at the list of stuff, action movies, certain genres, and Due Date, a road comedy, right there seems to do pretty well. So again, it's that notoriety. And, then this conversation kind of comes back around to, should Netflix release their films in theaters to make equity? And I mean, and Netflix has their own model. But Richard, you and I talk about this quite a bit, and there's a lot of hot takes on this topic. I was surprised you were still getting in your universe.
Well, I have other people say, look, this movie would have done $80 million at the box office, so that would have taken care of the costs, and people, have the math about. People kind of look at it as all or nothing. Like does theatrical make people more aware of films? Like, yes, so okay, put it up in the win column, but. It's like how much more aware and how much does that get you back? And the problem is that Netflix doesn't just get to pick the one to go in the time machine and find out which ones would be hits and decide to distribute those. You make an overall policy. So are you going to distribute all of them? Or are you going to distribute all your content? But if you're anything like a normal studio, not all your films that you release are going to be hits. In fact,
they're not. No.
In fact, the vast majority will not be hits. So saying like this film would have done better and would have that film's got to pay for all the films that they spend $80 million marketing that no one goes to see.
No, and it's Netflix marketing films is very difficult. So it takes a lot of resources, takes a lot of know-how. Distribution's a whole different thing. It's not just like, oh, they'll put it in theaters and it'll work. It's like there's a lot of it goes into this that studios have decades and decades of experience with. But I'm not even arguing, that Netflix should be putting their films in theaters. Like their originals do very well for them, and that makes their production spends fine, But I just say the long-term, viability of those films, after, if a film is on the charts for 5 weeks, a Netflix original film, that's a good performance. You never hear from them on a chart again, and they clearly don't sell windows on them, so the long-term value is there. But it's just, again, it's just this like pitting against each other, and I'm like, okay, Netflix films work great for Netflix, and theatrical films can, till the cows come home, we'll be making money for, another 30 years here. So nothing wrong with either one of them, but it's just a matter of like, stop pitting them against each other. It's like, this is the way to do everything. It's like, well, no.
Well, I guess my bugbear is supporting the theatrical experience is my number one cause. Probably there's nothing, but people sort of use Netflix as an excuse. Netflix is doing something different.
Yes, and exactly.
And that doesn't prevent Disney or Warner Brothers or anything else from figuring out how to market their films successfully. That's what they have to do, and Netflix not doing it is not an excuse for performance of their films.
Yeah, or to say that this is the way to go. So, yeah. But anyway, just interesting data points of just when you actually look at the numbers of this stuff, it kind of stuck out to me this week. So, Elaine, enjoy your French action pick. I hope I have a selection for you you and the family this weekend there.
I just started watching Carry On, speaking of Netflix
movies. Okay, there you go. That's the big, exactly right.
After I get through Carry On, yeah.
All right, just started watching Carry On. Okay, yeah, but
started, yeah.
Carry On's a lot of fun. By the way,
there you go. Recommendation from Mr. Rushfield. Yeah. All right, Elaine's. Well, watch the whole thing.
Let me finish it. Let me watch the whole thing. Then I'll have feedback.
Exactly.
Sort of the definition, though, of definitional nuts and bolts action film like that.
And it's now the fifth all-time most popular film on Netflix. So will be number 3 by I think next week. So again, would that have done $400 million in the movie? The conversation is a little moot in that sense. It's like it worked for Netflix, great. be very happy for them.
Yeah,
That's
well,
it,
I mean, let's say, how much would that have done? In
who knows? I mean,
I know.
Oh, you do?
I mean, it wouldn't have made 50 million.
Well, Richard, that is a theory that that is untested. You have a Jason Bateman, Taron Egerton action movie. You don't know. I mean, put the box office track record, a theatrical experience, getting out of the house to watch it. And would that have, you don't know. That's the thing. You don't know. It worked for Netflix.
Give me a comp of a nuts and bolts action film that has broken 100 million lately.
The Beekeeper with Jason Statham. There you go. Yes, who has a track record of theatrical box office. But these two actors, probably, who knows? Richard, you put a movie out in theaters, it's a much different thing than, in the home. But it worked. Right. But point being, it worked very well for Netflix, and that's great.
Exactly. That's
and the Jason Statham movie in March will hopefully work for them as well in theaters. So we'll see. But elsewhere, we're going to bring in Matthew Frank. Looked at the world of movie and TV marketing this week through the lens of the creator and meme worlds, and perhaps some lessons and opportunities present. Matthew, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Did you watch Carry On? I guess would be the first question we have to ask you now, everybody on the pod.
You know what? I haven't, but I will come staunchly to Richard's defense on Due Date. Due Date is awesome. So,
all right, I guess I got to rewatch it. I got to rewatch it. I just don't.
Was the highlight for you also seeing RDJ punch an 11-year-old boy, Matthew?
Is that the big?
I think that's just Richard. Sadly,
that's the big laugh of the. Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis are two very funny actors.
Incredibly talented,
reliable
actors,
pair.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I have some homework to do. I'll have to go on Netflix and watch it this weekend. So we'll see how it goes.
But Matthew, teach us about the Youngs.
Yeah, was there a golden horse I need to get? Is this all about something I need to be aware of here? What are we talking about here? What'd you and Abby get up
to? Something like that. Yeah. So Abby and I did this story where we talked to a lot of experts, people who work at studios, people who are sort of these Gen Z marketers, and people who work in social media to try and figure out, exactly what kind of divide exists between what Hollywood is putting out and what Gen Z and these more tech native groups are, engaging with. And, look, there are a lot of stats about time spent on TikTok and YouTube and a whole bunch of these apps. And, to be fair, these aren't, apples to apples comparisons, but like they are pretty jarring. Like the 13 to 24 demographic spends, I think it was 32% of its media time watching TV and movies compared to 60% for those over 35. But, what's interesting is that a lot of that time not spent on TV and movies is still spent on TV and movies, TikTok and YouTube and all these platforms. They subsist on a lot of clips from movies and TV shows, and it's repackaged by, these clip farmers in ways that, might surprise a lot of people. And as you mentioned, Sean, one example is We Live in Time, which was this Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh romantic drama that came out from A24. And, before the movie ever released, there was this like carousel horse from the promo images, this gold carousel horse.
Elaine, this feels like a very Elaine. I was like, Elaine's going to definitely be dialed into this.
But tell us more, Matthew.
Yeah. So it went viral. It was people making, mashups with other shows and movies and memes and all these different kinds of stuff. And it helped. It's that movie was like big stars. It's, decent enough budget, A24, but it certainly helped with awareness and boosted by being on social media and a big presence. And, it was created organically by fans and then co-opted by A24. And that's kind of, it was key to our whole story, which is that, the same thing happened with Suits, again, a lot of factors, but, even the show's creator acknowledged that like what really helped that show was these clip farmers on TikTok who started pushing out scenes from the show. And, it was viral well before it ever went on Netflix, just off clips of the show. And so the people that Abby and I talked to told us about how, Hollywood can kind of engage with these people, because it's a tricky thing, particularly with the Suits example where, you're accustoming people to watching it in these minute-long bursts. And people obviously went and watched Suits on Netflix, but, one of the people I talked to who operates in this sort of like Gen Z advisory space says, he and many other people, watch shows like Law and Order in these little 1-minute bursts on TikTok, and then, never go actually like watch the show. And the clip farmers that are putting it out are making money while Hollywood doesn't make anything in this scenario.
There's no money in those views for the Law and Order for NBC Universal. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's tricky how you engage with it in a way that doesn't, encourage the habit of watching less full TV shows and movies, and, still utilizes a lot of these different short form formats and, social media such that, young people want to watch more things.
And it almost seems like it doesn't matter whether the virality of a clip is making fun of the original project or not, because the end result is it's kind of, any publicity is good publicity. Like think about the We Live in Time horse from the carousel and just how many other movie posters and whatever it got splashed on, just clearly making fun of this carousel horse. But it's like, well, if the end result is more people go to watch this A24 movie, then it's all good, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's like I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but it's supposed to be like this very depressing kind of movie.
No,
it's like,
about,
this is
a couple
very,
of them is dying in it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's like a polar opposite in terms of like what a social campaign would be.
Not a lighthearted rom-com movie, no.
Yeah, so, but that, it still helps and is still very beneficial to it. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yes. And so you got to kind of, lean into this. There was an initial instinct in the internet, kind of was in the earlier days when you're a much younger man, that, you kind of had to, let's control this. Oh, no, wait, we have to get on top of the narrative. And we want these things to be what people are talking about, not this thing that they're talking about. And now the attitude seems to have either by force or by benefit to embrace this kind of stuff on the studio side of the equation.
Yeah, that's the thing. You kind of have to, because the train will leave the station with or without you. Like, you look at the Gentle Minions thing from, a couple summers ago now. And it's like, that's something that's very, very like organically driven. It's not something that like a studio marketing, could have come up with, but it's something that, influences what people see. And you kind of have to lean into that, or else you run the risk of just getting left behind. And, for a lot of these things, you kind of have to have some sort of a presence on social media. And that exclusively pretty much comes from this organically driven stuff. So you really have to lean into it, or else you risk irrelevance.
You don't want to have an uproar backlash against you be the exact opposite of what you would want, from that situation, even if it doesn't match exactly what you had in mind in your months of planning for months or years of planning for a campaign. But Elaine, is a lot of this stuff you say here on the podcast all the time, you're chronically online. Does this kind of content enter your life on a recurring basis?
It does, but I will say that I am not on TikTok because I am I am young, but not that young. So I get all of my TikTok clips the way every other elder millennial does, 2 weeks later on Instagram.
Well, until Sunday, we'll see if that transpires anymore. Yeah. Richard, you're Mr. TikTok. You're down. Yeah.
I get my recipes there. I see crazy weather things. I see some kid driving a skateboard into a wall. It's terrific. I have a great time browsing TikTok, and it's and I'm sorry that it has to be killed now. So I'd be willing to give up our national sovereignty to keep me with recipes and the funny influencers that I follow. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see what goes down this weekend for sure. But, Matthew, you do kind of talk about this in the piece where, studios can only do so much. This really it's a kind of an embrace of this, called creative culture, whatever you want to, who's driving this stuff. It's finding ways to maybe creatively work with them. So, studios can't, for many reasons, legal restrictions and talent relations and things like that. But, finding new ways to work with this community to kind of, try new things in this regard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there kind of has to be some level of experimentation. One of the people we talked to suggested, who operates in this space and has advised studios in the past, has basically said like, oh, you should pay the creators to put out the clips. And, it's kind of backwards in a way where, a lot of people are hoping you don't do that, because you can, basically watch full movies and TV shows on some of these apps just by, some profiles are just like one clip from a show, and then you click on the profile and then it's the rest of the show just in clip format. So it's really challenging because, that's not good if you, encourage that.
No, that can be a bad literal piracy. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But there's a level of if you can co-opt them in a way, you can control it, is kind of the idea. But yeah, it's really, there's a need for experimentation in that way, because you just don't really know what works yet, because sitting around and not just letting it happen is not going to work.
Great read there. You can check that out over at theankler.com. But all right, Elaine, it's time. Do you have the honorary Barbie hat ready in hand? It's time for the Holiday Box Office Expert Contest Award ceremony.
Ooh, I'm ready to pick up my trophy.
But you got to get this. Richard, do you still have that Barbie hat, by the way? That was a 2 year ago.
My children actually.
If they co-opted it?
Yeah, they hid it from me. They were so.
They hid it from you.
They took it away.
You were wearing it too often?
Yeah, they
didn't want to be seen.
Me wearing it any time amount of time they thought was too often. So. It was taken from me. So
all right, let's get a new trophy here. But as always, inspired by our old, I'll call them my friends because I grew up with them. Their Premiere Magazine was a big part of my life growing up. Matthew, do you know what Premiere Magazine is?
It's a historical artifact, Matthew.
I've heard of it. Do I know what it is? No. But
all right. Well, next time I'm in LA, I'll buy you a beer and tell you all about Premiere Magazine. I'm sure it'll be the highlight of your day. So anyway, they always did the rankings every summer and holiday season. So we have kept the tradition alive here. To refresh ourselves, we all correctly picked Moana 2 and Wicked. Certainly not a big surprise there, numbers 1 and 2. And again, we always go by U.S. box office. So those are the number 1 and number 2 movies. Wicked is actually winning over Moana in the U.S., although Moana has a much larger total on a global basis. So basically call that even. So it was a battle for third place. Our choices were, Elaine, you had Gladiator 2. Richard, you had Mufasa. And I chose Sonic 3. And I get the theoretical title. Sorry, guys.
Wait.
Shakes out.
Whoa. As I recall, the two of you picked Moana 2 as your number 1, right? And I had picked Wicked as my number 1. Now, Wicked is ruling the domestic box office, I believe you just said. No?
Wicked is, yes, that's true.
So how is it a wash on the top number, on the number 1 then?
I'd have to look at the transcripts. I don't know. I don't know. That'd be a tough one. But you didn't get Gladiator 3. So Gladiator 2, sorry, you didn't get that. So that
I'll get it with Gladiator 3.
Exactly. I've just willed that into existence now. Yeah, that's great. So it was tight. Sonic is currently at 207 million. Mufasa is 193, and Gladiator 2 is 171. So, we all had solid choices, I will say. But Elaine and I will pick that up offline about that. We can share the prize, I think. And in terms of a prestige breakout, Richard, you were on the Complete Unknown train. Elaine, you also had Complete Unknown with the side dish of Night Bitch, which did not get released in theaters.
But it's on Hulu now. So
it's on Hulu, so that kind of was a wild card, I guess. So, and I picked Nosferatu, which actually is doing the best box office of all of them. So
nice work.
That gives me the nod there, Elaine. That's
fine. Congratulations.
There we go. Fair enough. A fine effort as always by the trio here. So thanks for playing.
By the special envoy here.
Yes, exactly. Our special envoy here at the Ankler. So at the box office this weekend, Paramount has September 5th with Richard. I think we both give an enthusiastic thumbs up. Yes.
Yeah. No, it was great. Very interesting movie, and for news tech nerds, it's a delight.
Yeah, really recommend checking that out. We'll see. I don't know. MLK weekend's generally a pretty big weekend for the movie business. I don't know that these are going to tear up the box office, but we shall see. I'll wrap up the results on Sunday night in the Wake Up, as always, which you get as your part of your Ankler subscription. You go to theankler.com to sign up. Just enter the old email address and good to go. You can reach us here at the podcast anytime at podcasts@theankler.com. Follow The Ankler on the socials @theankler. Richard and Elaine, good to see you as always. Matthew, thank you for making time to join. And a big thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you next time.